Boop. Okay, and thank you all for clicking whatever buttons Zoom asks you to click and say, got it. And passing it over to Mariella. Thank you, my friend, for leading us today in this present, in our meditation sit, so we can hang out in the present moment and there's healing in the present experience. So thank you, Mariella. Over to you, my friend.
Thank you, Brian. Yeah, let's sit with the present moment. So I'm going to invite you all to find a comfortable position, something that feels relaxed, alert. If you want to keep your camera on or off, allow yourself to do that. And we'll practice for about 20 minutes. I'm going to ring the bell 1 time at the beginning of practice and 3 times at the end of practice. If you like, you can use the sound of the bell to bring your attention to this moment. And you may want to start by taking a couple of deeper breaths. Taking a deeper inhale through the nose. And a deep exhale. With your next inhale, invite the body to soften. Dropping down the shoulders, softening the jaw. And with your next exhale, releasing any tension that you are aware that is present in this moment. And taking a moment to orient yourself in the space you're in. You can do that by noticing sounds, those that are near and farther away. Noticing smells. Feeling the temperature of the space you're in. And just really bringing all of your attention, all of your awareness to this moment. To the here and now. Now bringing awareness to different sensations in the body. And feeling the contact of the body with the chair, the cushion, the sofa. Whatever object you are sitting or laying down on. Notice sensations in the back. in the seat bones area. Notice sensations in the legs, the feet, soles of the feet. Bringing awareness to the ground underneath the feet, earth holding you. And just bringing awareness to the whole entire body. Notice if you need to make any adjustments to the posture. And feeling the body from head to toes. And for the next few moments, just resting in the awareness of being here. Noticing what is it like to be human right now. What does it feel like to inhabit this human body? And bring a sense of curiosity to this. Doing this moment by moment with a kind, curious attention. A friendly attitude and welcoming all of it, all that is here in this moment. And remembering that to the best of your abilities, not judging what's in this moment, recognizing it, allowing it to be here. And see if you can locate the breath in the body. And just resting the awareness in the breath. Noticing the inhale, the exhale. And resting the attention in whichever part of the body is easiest right now for you to experience the breath. If for any reason the breath doesn't feel like a safe place to rest the attention right now, that's okay. You can find a different anchor, like the soles of the feet, But if you can, noticing the inhale and the exhale. With curiosity, noticing the different characteristics of the breath. Noticing how you don't need to make the breath happen. The body knows how to breathe. We are just here witnessing this body breathing. Experiencing the aliveness of this moment. And very naturally, the mind will get carried away with different sounds. That's not your anchor. My gals will get distracted with stories, thoughts, images. That's completely normal. That's what the mind does. And the invitation is to simply notice when the mind drifted away from the anchor, and to very kindly and gently return the attention back to the anchor in this moment, the breath. And you do this as many times as it's needed. This practice is not about not letting the mind drift away, but noticing when it does and bringing it back with kindness. And perhaps by now the attention is a little bit more settled. I invite you to expand the attention now to the whole entire body, bringing awareness to other sensations that are present as the body continues to breathe. Noticing what other sensations are present in the body. And the invitation is to simply notice, recognize what's here. To the best of your abilities, allow what's here in this moment to be here exactly as it is. the experiences that are present in this moment, sensations, thoughts, emotions. It's phenomena arising and passing by. If we don't attach to it, if we don't resist it, it just happens. It comes and it passes by. So see if you can notice how the different sensations arise and pass by. And including your awareness, also thoughts and emotions. And also just notice how they arise and pass by. Very naturally, the mind will want to attach to some of these experiences or resist, try to push them away. And the invitation is to notice also when that's happening. Because either of those two things create suffering for ourselves. So we want to incline the mind to be more accepting, more allowing of what's here to be here. So see if you can incline the mind to be more accepting, and if it's hard, you're encountering resistance, you can incline the mind to bring acceptance to that resistance and not judge the judgment. So just holding all of it in a loving awareness. All of the different parts of you are welcome in this space. Even the undesired parts of ourselves are welcome in this space. This practice, we are expanding our capacity to hold all that is happening at every moment, and holding it with kindness, with love, understanding, with acceptance. And we do this just one moment at a time. I'd like to invite you to bring your attention to the heart space, And if you want to place one or two hands there and asking yourself, what do I need to hear right now? What could be of support in this moment? And it might be a phrase, a word, and I invite you to offer that to yourself, that phrase or word of support. And it could be something like, I love you, you're enough, I'm here for you. You're not alone, we'll figure this out together. Just get in touch with the heart and what the heart needs in this moment, and offer that to yourself. And notice how that feels. And I'd like to remind you that this is something that you can do whenever you need it. And as we approach the end of this practice together, I'd like to end by inviting you to bring attention to gratitude and find something that you can be grateful for in this moment. Maybe a part of the body, a person, a pet, an event, an object. And notice where and how gratitude is experienced in the body, and allowing yourself to experience that. Also, take a moment and find gratitude for yourself for having made the time to be here and to be with you in this way. For gifting this time to you. You could have been doing something completely different, but you chose to be here to show up for yourself and to be with you in this way. This is very intimate. So honor that. And when I ring the bell, see if you can continue bringing this quality of attention, of kind attention, curious attention, and non judgmental awareness to the rest of the time being here, to the rest of your day, and making the rest of your day a continuation of your practice. So the practice doesn't end here. The practice continues after the sound of the bell. Thank you all for your practice, for being here. Again, welcome to those of you that join us halfway through the seat. It's great to have you here. And I now pass it on to my amazing co-host, colleague, friend. I'm trying to do a great introduction, Brian, like you usually do for the guest speakers.
Did you hear everybody? She called me amazing. Wait, what word did you use?
Um, I don't know, but maybe
Wait,
it
I
was
want
consistent.
to. I don't think it was
But you're
amazing. It was.
amazing. You're amazing. And so I just want to do a great introduction like you
Oh,
usually do for the guest speakers because you're our guest speaker today.
oh, thank you. So look
So,
at me. I just turned on my video. I'm all red from happiness. But thank you, Mariella, and thanks everybody for being here. I'm so glad we all get to spend this time together. And I really loved what was said earlier. A little sweating. I got a shiny forehead. If I was an actor, somebody would come by and blot this and put something up here. But oh well. Um, I really liked it earlier on. Somebody was sharing about Sangha and how and this space, and I'm so glad that we all have this space together, that we've been all building together for the past 3 years. Yeah, this has helped me a lot. So welcome everybody. I'm so glad to be the guest speaker today. I've got some slides. I hope what I have to share is of benefit, helpful. If I share anything that is not doesn't feel like it resonates with you, just let it go right on by. And if I say anything today that causes any harm, please know that that was not my intention. Yes. But I hope it's helpful as always. And talking about deep suffering, and today talking about vulnerability. So, okay, let me share my screen here. Okay, fantastic. So, I am going to be talking a little bit about dirty laundry, not a lot. But I'm really glad to be talking about this topic, something that I have, yeah, I think we've all been practicing in our own ways in this Hope group, showing up. Um, I've struggled for a long time in my life. I don't want to show up until I'm ready, right? Until I look a certain way or sound a certain way, or but showing up even before we are perfect, whatever that is. So today I'll be talking about danger, um, fear, this idea of dirty laundry, and the strength and the connection and the love that's found just on the other side of fear, um, through vulnerability. And I will be referencing today the wonderful Brene Brown and her research. Um, some of which you can find, much of which you can find in her book, Atlas of the Heart. Okay. So today I am going to be talking about nature also, and we are part of nature. We are not the only ones here on Earth. And I like this photo. It reminded me of maybe the mornings or the mid-morning. And this morning, there's all kinds of wonderful creatures exploring, wandering, and wondering, just like Mariella, you guided us in the meditation and observing and watching our minds like little deer wandering around, wondering, ooh, what's that? Should we go look at that? Should we try to eat that? Ooh, no, that doesn't taste good. But just wandering around and exploring. And also in the forest, we have animals just like us that are, well, that are prey and being very careful. And there is power and solidarity, and safety in the group, in the tribe, in the pack. And maybe, well, maybe they hurt us. And yeah, and ready to fight, perhaps, maybe to flee, maybe to freeze, perhaps. And this here is a picture of what looks like could be dusk and the stillness of nature. Just like even in our busy lives, we also have stillness at times. And this beautiful pond with birds and all kinds of creatures under the water, a vibrant ecosystem. Oh, and sometimes these little and sometimes not so little creatures make their way out of the water and explore. And again, there's safety in numbers. And these cute little beavers, maybe they just had breakfast and now they're getting ready to work on their dams for the day, but not without a little cuddling. Everybody loves a little cuddling. And again, connection, and two is better than one. And here we have another scene, another ecosystem. And some creatures, some sentient beings are fine with groups and also fine alone, looking around. Eagle eye. Isn't eagle eye? I think eagle eye is an expression. So some creatures have excellent vision. And some creatures also have excellent vision on the ground. And again, maybe they heard something, maybe not, but just in case, just in case. And another ecosystem and another creature, maybe getting ready for the day. And maybe just off to the side of the camera, there's the rest of the pack, or not. And perhaps this creature has wandered a little bit away from what has been home. And just like what we were practicing earlier today, to meditate means coming home and coming home to ourself, maybe coming home to the people that get us. And sometimes, just like creatures in the wild, um, sometimes we come home to a new family. Sometimes we have a found family, a new pack, a herd that we decide to join. And some of us, oh my goodness, look at this beauty. And some of us uh, don't need to hide. And some of us are fine in groups and fine alone and don't particularly need to hide all the time. And what it must be like to be at the top of the food chain. And finally, a picture here of a forest scene and a cave, which for many thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands, how many more times is he going to say thousands? Thousands and thousands and thousands of years, this was our safety. This meant that we might be able to survive for the night. And if we're lucky, we have another person, maybe more than one, that we could huddle up against and maybe get some rest. Okay. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about vulnerability, um, and just for a little bit, and then I'm looking forward to closing and then hearing from all of you about what vulnerability means in your life. Um, and I want to start with just a definition. Again, this is from Brene Brown. The vulnerability is the emotions we experience during times of uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure. And Brene Brown in her research has interviewed, because as many of you know, Brene Brown, as well as being a great public intellectual, like Carl Sagan and others, um, speaking about topics that she's dedicated her life to. And she's interviewed tens of thousands and still continues to interview tens of thousands of people. And her research is specifically on vulnerability. And we really benefit from hearing about her research and the takeaways. And these are a few of the answers. These are a few of the answers of what people talked about with their own vulnerability. The first date after their divorce, for example, the first date after my divorce, talking about race, ethnicity, gender, religion with my work colleagues, trying to get pregnant after my trying to get pregnant after my second miscarriage, talking about my feelings, starting my own business, watching my child leave for college, remembering that business leaders don't have all the answers, but they may ask important questions. Apologizing to a colleague about how I spoke to him in a meeting. Sending my son to orchestra practice, knowing how badly he wants to make first chair, and knowing there's a very good chance he will not make the orchestra at all. Waiting for the doctor to call back with results. Giving and getting feedback. And finally, getting back up to bat in baseball after striking out. So we do live under many myths, as you may have gathered from the pictures and some of my words. We do not live, of course, we do not live anymore in nature, although we are still part of nature, although I think we tell ourselves we're not. And there are many myths about our lives here, including some fairly big ones that I wanted to highlight. For example, that there are things happening inside us, certain emotions, certain thoughts, certain sensations that we have, and that somehow certain things that are very difficult to tolerate are bad, that there is something wrong with us. And to put it a different way, we do live under a myth that we believe, many of us believe, perhaps our cultures and our societies and families teach us that some emotions are better or worse than others. And Brene Brown in her research has found that across cultures, most of us were raised to believe that being vulnerable is being weak, that there is something wrong with that tenderness, with that feeling scared, with that uncertainty about the future. And that being vulnerable is a weakness. And this is so, I mean, this is really hard for me. And it creates a tension inside me. And I know I'm not the only one. And it's an unresolvable tension. It's an unresolvable tension, at least it has felt for many years for me, that many of us raised in cultures and societies that tell us we need to do it alone, pull ourselves up by our bootstraps, and we need to be brave. And uh, it's very hard to turn towards vulnerability because we're supposed to be strong. And I also just wanted to highlight again, even though, yes, we are still part of nature, well, not exactly 10,000 years ago, but at a certain point, we all decided that we're no longer going to, well, we don't need to be part of nature anymore. We don't need to hunt and gather. We figured out farming. And so we are separate. And maybe some humans, maybe, maybe even some people in the room right now think, I used to think this, I still do, that humans are, there's a little vulnerability in me saying this out loud. I think that humans are better than some animals. We're different. And so maybe we have different rules. Um, and so the same vulnerability and the same fear that we used to feel in nature that would help us stay alive, just like that red fox that was drinking that may have heard something. Now, the vulnerability and the fear that is this natural alarm system, this check engine warning light, um, now it means I'm not doing my life right. It means there's something wrong with me. And here's a quote about accepting emotions. Accepting the emotion you're feeling gives the power back to you. To avoid is to amplify, and to acknowledge is to release. And again, this fear that we have, and just like some of the animals we saw experience fear all day long, and we still experience fear all day long, and some of those animals might fight, they might flee, they might freeze, just like we have this tendency and this natural impulse to fight or flee or freeze. And also as humans, we also have tend and befriend, these 3 or 4 ways that we manage fear. And fear is reminding us of something that's important, very important. And I wanted to highlight again that in nature, this is just one little bumper sticker way of saying it, that in nature, the law of nature is competition. And the law of civilization would be cooperation. Not entirely, but civilization can't work without cooperation. And these new dangers that we have, and I'd like to share a few of them. We're no longer, most of us don't worry about being chased by a lion, but we do have some new fears, such as fear of our first day of school. Very scary. Very, very scary. A job interview. Saying goodbye to grandma. First date. First date after the death of a spouse, after 45 years of marriage and a few years of waiting, deciding to go back and see if there is love there for them as well. And the fear of putting themselves out there, being exposed. And maybe courage is fear with legs. Maybe some of you have heard this expression before, the world of 12-step programs or just out there in the world and all the things that we're afraid of. And then sometimes feeling like in our cultures and our societies that we shouldn't be afraid. But there's so many things to be afraid of. And perhaps instead of burying it down and burying it down and trying to manage it alone and figuring it out alone, maybe we can take steps such as sharing with someone, letting someone else know what it feels like to be me. And again, a theme that we keep coming back to over and over and over again in this group, and probably most groups, whether it's 12-step, religious communities, group therapy, individual therapy, support groups, process groups, families, where there is emotional safety is connection. And as we've shared before, and maybe the opposite of deep suffering is not no suffering, the opposite of suffering is connection. And again, connection is the energy that exists between people when they feel seen and heard and valued, when they can give and receive without judgment, and when they derive sustenance and strength from the relationships. And for us, just like those deer and the beavers and the turtles, not necessarily the lions, but for a lot of the creatures, to be seen is dangerous. To be heard was and is dangerous. And so, sometimes people say, well, just tell me what's wrong. Just tell me. Well, it's scary. And it's still scary for us. And all healing comes from connection and community. I was going to share earlier about um, dirty laundry. So let me just say a little something about that. There's that expression and that idiom, I believe first was French, and then first time it appeared in English was, I guess, in the mid 19th century. And Napoleon famously had a comment about dirty laundry and his exiled home in Elba. Anyways, now I'm just showing off. But the reason the deeps the dirty laundry, don't air your dirty laundry. Don't show your neighbors what you have going on. Don't show them the scars and the stains and the yucky. Because if they do, maybe what? Maybe, and here's my fear, and we all have maybe our own fear about what that dirty laundry might result in. For me, if I was to air my dirty laundry, it would mean that I would be kicked out of the community. Uh, Nobody wants somebody like my dirty laundry is so much dirtier than everyone else's. So maybe people wouldn't want me anymore. And what people like Brene Brown and her research and her own personal work share, and thank goodness, is that vulnerability is not a weakness. It's our greatest measure of courage. And to be able to say something to someone and not have them judge or criticize or interpret or keep score. I'm thinking of killing myself. I don't know if I want to live anymore. My wife and I have been married for 45 years and she died, and now I just don't know if I want to do this anymore. And venting and ventilating and airing these things with people that say, I heard you. I see you. Of course you're thinking. Of course you're thinking about not wanting to be here anymore. Of course. And this connection. And maybe I don't have to carry this all on my own anymore. And perhaps all healing comes from connection and community. And in closing, what we're doing here over Zoom, and it's amazing over Zoom even that we can all put our hands together and that no one needs to say anything. No one needs to talk. No one needs to have their video on. No one needs to meditate. No one needs. This is a space where we can show up as we are. And maybe that emotional safety is a prerequisite for vulnerability. Because if I don't feel safe, then nothing is possible. And again, this has come up before in this group, but I really find it helpful to see this sort of construction. And I'm going to say the words now in order. Safety, particularly emotional safety. And again, we humans needed to worry about physical safety. Our lives were about physical safety, physical safety, physical safety. And then at a point, we moved over to this thing that we all have here, civilization. And now, certainly physical safety And we also have this emotional safety issue because we're all here together and we're not fighting. Excuse me. We're not in nature anymore. It's not the food chain. We are still fighting, unfortunately. So, anyways, back to my point. Emotional safety leads to softening. Safety leads to softening, softening. And sometimes we soften, well, it's totally subjective. What one person says is a fast softening might feel slow for someone else, but who cares? Safety leads to softening. Softening leads to trust. I trust you. I trust this other beaver, this other deer. It feels okay. Softening leads to trust. I can go to sleep next to this person. I know they're not going to hurt me or steal from me. Trust leads to vulnerability. Maybe I will say some things. Some of us here have had the experience of either saying to someone else or having someone else say to us something that has never been said to anyone else. This happened to me yesterday. Somebody told me something they hadn't told anyone else ever. So safety leads to softening. Softening leads to trust. Trust leads to vulnerability, or at least knowing that I can say to Mariella how angry I feel and she's not going to judge me for it. And vulnerability leads to authenticity, the real Brian, the real Mariella. And finally, authenticity leads to intimacy. And intimacy, deep connection, and perhaps the medicine for deep suffering is deep connection, deep intimacy, the kind that we have been growing here for the past 3 years, like a garden, and nurturing it every week, this Sangha. And it all starts with safety. And at times, and perhaps today, when in 30 seconds when I turn off the recording, maybe it's an opportunity for some of us to share and talk about what it feels like to be you today. Things on our mind, feelings in our body, sensations, emotions, and the safety and the softening and the trust and the vulnerability and the authenticity and the intimacy. And we practice it, as Mariella, you said earlier, meditating together, one of the most intimate things we can do. And we listen to each other and we don't criticize and we don't give advice, unsolicited advice, and we support each other. We're walking with each other. And maybe it is true, like Ram Dass famously said, maybe we are all just walking each other home in this connection. And I think that's it. So thank you all for your kind attention. I hope that was a benefit and helpful. And I'm going to turn off the recording and so we can have community, our Sangha.